All right, we're live. Nice, nice, nice. So, what's up, people? Uh, this is a garbage stream because what we're talking about is garbage that shouldn't normally be talked about because it's useless, petty Twitter quibbles that fucking spill over into bigger events that shouldn't even be as big as they are. Isn't that right, Voltaire?
Yeah.
Do you want to give a little bit of a little bit of background, at least from your perspective on things?
Let's see. A month ago, I poorly defended Hoppa in the debate between Esoteric, and ever since then we've been having this back and forth on Twitter in the DM chat until it got to the point he kicked me out like twice from that same group, same DM chat, and he created a new one today.
He created another one?
Yeah.
Oof. Well, fucking yeah. So for people who aren't aware, me and Volt have been talking to the YouTuber Esoteric Entity, who is I guess he's just what, Rothbardian AnCap? I guess that'd be the best way to put it.
Well, he described himself a Spoonerite AnCap or whatever.
Even though Spooner was fucking left wing because he wanted the abolition of wages and shit. But yeah, sure, that makes sense.
Well, at least he's not a Benjamin Tucker anarchist who wanted to abolish rent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, almost the same thing. But anyway, and we shared a group chat with him, like you mentioned. At first, it was Cool Capitalist Kids, which was like just KKK. Then it became Council of Capitalist Kings, so it was COC. And it's been basically AnCap drama. But the thing about it is, fucking. So, how would you describe your fucking debate? I know you said it went poorly, although I don't think you did horribly in it. But what would you say was like the toughest part for you?
His main argument is that a covenant community will form on someone else's property and will force someone off their property, and it said it requires arbitration, therefore it requires a state. And then I didn't really know how to understand that argument. Honestly, I didn't know. I felt that that's borderline. Looking back on that, he was honestly making like a mutualist or anarcho-communist argument against Hoppa community covenants, to be honest.
Yeah, because I mean, he was trying to make the case that if I have property around someone else's property, and because I'm essentially surrounding you, if I make rules that limit your access to the outside world, that's somehow like a violation of some sort of libertarian principle, even though by his own logic, it's not, because if you just buy the property around someone else's houses, that's not that's not a violation of the NAP, because it's not intruding on their property and it's not giving them free access to your property. So it's fucking stupid shit. And well, one of the things that keeps coming up on Twitter is like the constant straw manning. And I mean, you've had to deal with it the most. So do you want to talk about that for a sec?
Let's see. I was trying to make a Kurt Doolittle proprietarian criticism of anarcho-capitalism by saying there's different foreign property. Then somehow he jumped to that's like anarcho-communist argument, and he just memed me.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be completely fair, sometimes you say some shit and it gets what was it? I was scrolling through some of Esso's tweets, and one of the things that he screen capped you saying in a DM was, "I'm not a statist, but you could say I have fasci tendencies." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not like it's I know you're not a statist, but it's like and I know what you mean by fasci tendencies. You mean like a cultural type of perspective, like you're looking for a traditionalist worldview to be kind of imposed.
Yeah.
And It's, and I know what you mean by that, but to say that and then claim that you're not a statist without people like properly understanding the context of what you're saying is a little bit weird. You get what I mean?
Yeah, it's just I just usually assume that people just know what I mean and know what I'm thinking. It's easy. It's much easier than actually explaining yourself. To be honest.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, and I mean, Esso doesn't help himself because fucking even if he didn't have you to kind of poke fun at a little bit, he would still be making absolute strawmans out of what the Hoppian position is. I mean, one of the things being that he calls it a social contract with extra steps, or it's essentially a state. Like, just to go back to the thing you were talking about, whatchamacallit, it's just the arbitration needs a state. Like, do we suddenly not need courts in an anarcho-capitalist society? And like, because that's what arbitration is. It's just courts. It's kind of stupid to say that if you're going to concede that fucking whatchamacallit, arbitrate says state is necessary for arbitration, like then you're conceding the fact that the private market couldn't handle a court system on its own, which is, something I know he doesn't agree with. So it's,
Well, this is why he said that Hans Hoppe is like he's Hobbesian, like in the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes, the author of the Leviathan. This is why he said this during our streamers, like he agrees with Hobbes when he made really clear criticisms that he really doesn't really like Thomas Hobbes.
Yeah. Oh, just a heads up. Tom is looking to join, so I sent him the link.
Oh man! Yeah. At least I got to talk to the Australian.
Yes, we're inviting our big-brained Abo friend, but fucking and Yax is in the I see you Yax in the chat as well. The problem it's not exclusively an AnCap DM, but they all jump on Voltaire as if he's insulted their religion, which is entirely true. You get unnecessary amounts of shit, and it's ridiculous.
Me?
Oh yeah, like, because I mean, like, I know, like, look, you and I both know that you aren't exactly the clearest of writers, but at the same time, they willfully strawman your positions, even when you explain yourself fairly clearly, and they do so of their own volition. So it's like the things they criticize you over are absolutely idiotic.
Yeah.
I mean, would you disagree?
Yeah. Some I have thick skin, so I have thick skin, but my like yesterday, my patients were really thin but esoteric, so I just calling him, like, I will just call him names at that point.
I mean, he does the same thing to you, and it's very obvious. So I don't blame you for retaliating, like, if you got pissed. But, and I mean, fucking, he argues things so strangely. It's, and that's why, and it just, like, the fact that we have a different position on something like how to end the state. Like Yak said, it's an insult to his religion, essentially. And I mean, you got booted from the DM before I did, but I tried to re-invite you, and the second I tried to re-invite you, he kicked me too.
Yeah, just when you mentioned that he argue things strangely, he has his own terminology. He uses his own terminology, and he doesn't really explain himself that much. Like, he just makes these assertions without backing these things up. Like when he said that Keynesians focus on the supply side, and then I brought up an article from the Hoover Institution saying that, well, basically entitling Keynes would not be a Keynesian as today's standards. And he just said that's a no true Scotsman fallacy without actually reading the article.
Well, it's really weird because the thing about it is, like, Essa was wrong on two fronts, because we were referring to a tweet when he talks about whatchamacallit. He was referring to Keynesians not wanting higher taxes, and also how they focus on the supply curve, which was like, he was kind of right and he was kind of wrong, because there are certain cases in which Keynesians will advocate for lower taxes, but it's not because they're focusing on it from a supply side. There is a demand side explanation for it. The thought being that, well, the government doesn't need the money. They can just go into debt and continue deficit spending while continuing to give consumers more purchasing power, which will increase demand for goods, and the economy will increase. The aggregate output will increase as such. So he was wrong on so many fronts. And it's, as someone who's taken econ classes on the fucking college level, he'd be laughed out of any serious discussion about economic schools of thought. What's up, Tom?
Hey, what's up?
We're just fucking shitting on neat Jesus right now.
Oh, yeah. I got a glimpse of that, but I'm not entirely filled in on all of what he's been saying. But I just saw what you were just mentioning then, the whole Keynesian economics thing, which I made a video response to like a month ago or 2 months ago now.
Yeah, and I mean, that pretty much covered it, but he's continuing to argue it, because me and Volt were in some chat with him not too long ago, and he's just being so autistic about it.
Yeah, so Links in the Discord, who doesn't really have much of a online presence, but either way, he made a series of graphs, I guess, just explaining basic supply and demand in the state of equilibrium, and then demand side expansion versus supply side expansion, and then how lower taxes under Keynesianism and in their basic model is it to increase the spendable income of each household, which increases their consumptions and their tradings with other firms and etc. And is as being demand side and having an expansion of aggregate demand. The classic Keynesian model would just call this basic expansionary policy, and it's just typical of any Keynesian to not look at high taxes as infinitely good, like the Marxist who wants to crush the bourgeoisie and so forth with taxes and inflation, but just to look at taxes as a tool to fight recessions and so forth, whether and whether those taxes be high or low is based on context. And it's just like I didn't hear what you were saying, but I heard the last minute of you just discussing this basic thing, which is stupid.
Yeah, well, that's a part of it. And then the other larger part, which you and I have been trying to get on, is the fact that he's continuing to strawman the Hoppian position, which neither of us, I don't think any of us here entirely agree with, but he's continuing to strawman it and continuing to mention us, and then he's not even giving us a chance to defend the position that he's claiming to have full knowledge of or anything like that. So that's, pissing us off as well.
Yeah, and as someone in the chat is bringing up, he does, from what I've heard, he's been using the words proprietarian and Hoppian interchangeably. I remember when Voltaire, you debated him, and I didn't watch that debate. I don't know how it went, but I remember the title, it was like proprietarian versus AnCap or something like that.
It was something cringy like that, right, Voltaire?
Yeah, just it's weird, like proprietarian. I think he has a Wikipedia understanding of proprietarianism.
That's a good way of describing it, actually. And I mean, though, I think the thing is with him, I think he was willing to debate you because, like, out of all the people I think he could have chosen, I think he knew that you might not have been the best prepared for it, because right now he's still, like, dodging debate left and right. Like, whenever I try to DM him or someone like Hoodie Demon or fucking anybody on this, he's constantly, like, I had him and Hoodie Demon in a DM chat for a little while, and he said he wouldn't have been comfortable doing it by himself without Hoodie, which I didn't care about as long as I got, one or both of them to debate. But then he left the chat after he kicked me from the other DM group, and then he hasn't talked to me since, even though Yax brought up the fact that he said he would be willing to debate me, which is weird.
Yeah, some time ago I was going to speak to him on Skype, and we organized a time. We weren't going to record it or anything. I just wanted to have a conversation with him, and I don't know, just some shit happened, and I can't remember what happened, but either way it didn't get organized, and that was like a month, 2 months or 3 months ago, and I'd like to do that again. I don't know if he'd still be interested though, because Esoteric used to send me a lot of messages wanting to collab with me, and you know, I never wanted to, but yeah, I don't know how he'd be down now because I've made a video calling him out, and he gets pretty autistic when it comes to dealing with criticism, and a lot of people have been telling me, because I haven't been involved in a lot of this, but I've been tagged in a lot of it, and my name has been dropped by him in DMs a lot. Like, someone sent me a screen cap of him telling Voltaire to think for himself and stop listening to True Diltom's bullshit opinions. And like, I don't coach Voltaire on anything. We actually have only spoken like 6 times or 7 times or so in my Discord, as opposed, like, we've never had a personal, like, one-on-one conversation anyway. So there's no it's a weird comment, like, and it's very common of AnCaps to kind of do the brainwashing card a lot of the time. It's which is interesting, but yeah.
It's just friggin' weird on his part, because it's, you know, I think it's the fact that at first he viewed you more as someone who was gonna kind of fall in line with the stereotypical Rothbardian view, and then the more you kind of digressed and became more in depth in looking into what makes a state possible, what the demand for it is, what its actual function is, I think that kind of drove him off, because he was seeing you go away that even slightly strayed from the normal way of thinking about it from the ANCAP perspective, and then that turned him off almost immediately. Like, I'd love to see him try to respond to something like your latest video with Juvenal and those guys, because, you know, it perfectly highlights why their view of, like, state formation, or their approach to ending the state, so to speak, would be incredibly difficult, if not almost entirely impossible.
Yeah, it's that video was originally going to be like 40 minutes long, but my computer, I usually have most of this stuff backed up, but just at the time, that script was the one thing I didn't have backed up, and my computer died. It can't find its operating system, so I lost it, and I had to, like, rewrite it just from remembering what I had put together. So it ended up being much shorter than it was going to be. But on that video, so the point being that it's far less in depth than what I wanted to go in that topic. But even on that video, I got people commenting that it was ridiculous to think of the demand for the state as if there is no, as I said, narrative of legitimacy that needs to be established within the governing population, and that the state, everybody is like history isn't riddled with counter revolutions and kings being beheaded and governments being overthrown, like, and that the state is just infinitely successful in the oppression of the governing population. It was just absurd, you know, and I still get comments every day on that saying, like, Slab City is anarcho-communism, even though contrary to anarcho-communist society, there is no collective ownership of any means of production or so forth. It's like, there's no one there to like, say, if you look at the Paris Commune and the Spanish Civil War in the Republican-held territories, where they would check passports for people wanting to enter and leave, and there was, like, strict collective control over all property, while it seems that in Slab City it's extremely individualistic, and that everybody has complete say over their own property. And I don't know. Yeah, so I'm really, you can tell I'm really tired right now. But I'm trying.
No worries.
I haven't had my coffee yet.
According to Esoteric, he thinks that you're falling into a statist trap.
Well, I probably am a statist. I don't even, like, I think the most accurate label to call myself at this point would be reactionary, and I'm much more sympathetic with reactionary schools of thought and Moldbug and Imperial Energy and Pakistani and so forth than I am with any of the libertarians these days. I would say that I have no loyalty to the word libertarian, and I have no loyalty to the word statist either. I don't really care. I think it's a fucking stupid accusation, and maybe I am a statist, and so what? And this is a common trend I've noticed with esoteric entities video, like some of the things I have seen him say, like he spends a lot of time trying to pigeonhole various ideologies into left and right. Like I saw somebody had a whole argument with him over this, like Dinesh D'Souza view on the political compass, in which just everything that's not economically conservative in the modern American sense of the word is left wing, and he was trying to pigeonhole fascism as left wing, and it's just a redundant.
I called him out.
It's just it's just a redundant conversation to have, though. It's like, okay, I don't care if I'm left or right wing. Like, it's just a means of classification. It doesn't actually change it doesn't even change the ideas you're referring to. It just changes like the label you give them for some other project, which is the constructing a political compass, which is just in itself a means of referencing things. And anyway, the point being that he spends a lot of time trying to like pigeonhole ideas as statist or not statist or left wing and so forth, and it's just a waste of time. I don't care if I'm a statist, and I don't care if I'm in the authoritarian segment on the political compass. I have no loyalty to that label. I have loyalty to the ideas that I accept as true. And I don't know, it's stupid.
Well, no, that's another big thing amongst lolberts that they've kind of really almost adopted from the left, because it's become enough to just call somebody a name and dismiss their ideas because of this other ridiculous notion that they have that's like, oh, libertarianism is the only logically consistent philosophy because of, first principles and non-contradiction, which is an entirely meaningless statement, because most of the formal logic used for political philosophies in the West argues from that same standpoint. And it's just ridiculous to think that libertarianism has a monopoly on this idea that it's the only logical consistent ideology just because they have a few certain first principles, or that they're not even contradictory or whatever.
But pragmatic culture, you're a statist. All your criticisms of libertarians is invalid automatically. I'm arguing like a Marxist now.
I mean, yeah, it really is. And what's worse is that the reason, because this is all evolving from fucking petty ass Twitter arguments that like I've offered time and time and again to talk to these guys, and what pisses me off isn't that, you know, they disagree, because fuck it, I still like people that disagree with me. I just want to fucking talk to them, and they don't want to talk, which is the most infuriating part. And that's kind of why I'm trying to figure out, you know, are they afraid, or are they just being intellectually dishonest? What's like, I'm still trying to figure out the fucking catch is what I'm trying to do.
Well, it's clear that Esoteric has an ego problem. I've heard somebody say that he has told people he has an IQ of 150, which is clearly not true. Like that's like a Jordan Peterson level or something. Like you look at his videos, and the level of analysis is so small. It's crazy. Like every video he does can really just be summed up as does this violate the non-aggression principle, does it not? And using that completely binary and simplistic standard to judge everything as being interchangeably good or interchangeably bad. And then he will go on to do the snowflake liberal beat the fuck out talking points. It's just, he clearly has an ego problem, and he clearly gets a high of convincing himself that he's pwned all of these Marxists and so forth. And clearly all the videos he responds to are extremely low-hanging fruit, like 16-year-olds in their bedrooms and so forth, or like Fox News clips. And I don't know. It's clearly there's like, it's almost like the narcissistic shell breaking, and the I don't know. I don't know what his deal is either, but I'm just saying that.
Would you say that sounds right too, Voltaire?
Yeah. Also, something unrelated. I still think Shane Killing is like the best libertarian YouTuber. Like,
oof.
So I'm just saying that because he just makes like really better. He really researched his stuff. He really researched his stuff for his vids, and he cites isn't leaving a citation. He just doesn't use like Mises.org all the time on like esoteric entity. Like he used
Yeah. I think Shane, my wife's dad, Killian, is he has like a lot of good videos from back in the day about the Great Depression and so forth. But I really think when he jumped on this bandwagon of trying to be he kind of descended back into the MS Paint avatar, Mr. Dapperton clone that we see, like even Esoteric himself to some extent, all over the internet. And I think his videos with where he's introduced his astronaut character and so forth aren't that good, but I do like a lot of his old content.
Well, I mean, he did a fairly well-researched video on immigration, one that I think is, it's like Volt said, it's very well sourced. It's not just like Mises.org, Cato Institute, yada yada yada. It's federal agencies he's citing, various studies conducted across multiple borders and things like that. But he's one of the people also that contributes to this first principles kind of idea that libertarianism has a monopoly on being logically consistent according to them. Because there is an old video of his where he describes the libertarian position, and he goes into principles like, oh, it's based off of this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, okay, but this isn't unique to libertarianism. So while he has his better aspects, he's still a Lulbert at the end of the day.
Not really. I wouldn't just disregard Shane as a Lulbert. Not really.
I mean, he's for open borders, and he has a very similar like means of responding to people that disagree with him, just like everyone here we're talking about now. Like Pragmatic, you had an interaction with him some time ago where he called you a racist.
Yeah, and that's the thing that still goes through my mind. Like, I mentioned a source from the Center for Immigration Study, which, I mean, I'm not going to deny has certainly a fairly pro-American sort of like restricted immigration kind of bias. But I wasn't unwilling to admit that. But then when I asked him to challenge the numbers they provided, as opposed to just attacking them as, say, a biased source, he still wasn't really able to. And you mentioned it earlier, Voltaire, with the thing where it's like you brought up a source from the Hoover Institute, and I mean that's where Thomas Sowell worked. And it was talking about Keynesianism, and all Esso had to say was it's just a no true Scotsman fallacy. And it's just like these surface level dismissals that don't actually disprove an argument are like running rampant within these Lulbertarian kind of circles.
One of the most absurd comments he made was a screen cap I saw towards Voltaire, where he accused him of his source being invalidated based on the fact that it was confirmation bias, and it made me think, well, what do you expect? He's sending you a source to confirm his beliefs. What do you want him to do? Send something that's going to falsify them? Like I just thought that was crazy.
Yeah, I think that was the same screen cap that he sent the source from the Hoover Institute, which is, I think this is the problem. Why I want to talk to these guys so much. I think they're falling into the same traps that they accuse literally everybody else of doing, where the rigorous nature of the arguments that they had, if they were there at any point at all, is kind of just falling apart because they feel like they've established some sort of ground, even though they're still a massive intellectual minority on not only this platform but in any major intellectual discussion in general. And it's kind of just sad to see any sort of good debate fall by the wayside because these guys are so self-assured.
Well, let's take me for example. A couple hours ago, I was in a discussion with the Georgia's libertarian, and I didn't really challenge him that much because I didn't really know what the Georgian is, but I think he explained himself pretty well. I thought he brought up some interesting points, and I really like to learn more from him than rather just like try almost indignantly disproves him because he wanted to tax basically land value under the Georgia's terminology.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's another thing. It's the you're very diverse with the people you try to go out and find Voltaire, and I give you a lot of credit for that because, unlike most people, you're very willing to entertain a conversation, and as am I, and I think as is anybody in Tom's Discord or my Discord or whatever. But these same people who claim that communists have to give them a platform, or they're being stifled from the conversation, aren't providing that same courtesy to people who have a different libertarian viewpoint. It's not even that, or if you consider it libertarian, even again, labels don't necessarily matter, but they're just being so prohibitive with the ideas they allow in their inner sanctum, and it's just doing nothing for their credibility and for their intellectual rigor of their arguments. It's I'm with Tom in that I have no loyalty to the word libertarian necessarily, in the same way that someone like Chris Cantwell doesn't have any loyalty to it either, but we still both kind of feel that these principles of a society where nobody is forced to do anything, that's a society we'd still like to live in at the end of the day, I think.
Yeah. Although Cantwell is an idiot. I'm just saying that.
No, that's a fair assessment. I have to admit it. I wouldn't be where I am today politically without Christopher Cantwell, but at the same time, he's horrible for optics.
Yeah.
But
all right, guys, I'm gonna get something to eat, so I'll be listening in, but catch you guys later.
Yeah, peace. Thanks for stopping by, Tom.
No worries.
Dylan. Yeah. It's fucking. I hate the fact that fucking. It's Trudell Tom is because his name is like Dylan Thomas, but fucking I keep calling him fucking Tom.
Yeah, it's his last name. You can call him Dylan if you want to.
Do we want to address the accusation of? Do we want to address some of Esso's actual arguments as to like why they're wrong?
Let's actually address his arguments and try to represent him honestly, unlike him.
Yeah, well, I can pull up some. Cantwell is the modern day George Lincoln Rockwell. Ha! I wish. Who said that? Oh, fucking Ostro said that. I wish Cantwell had. Even George Lincoln Rockwell's optics were better than Cantwell's. But fucking. I don't know. Enough about Cantwell. Voltaire's right. He's horrible for the movement in general, but he's just fun to listen to.
Yeah. Where's Harry Brown or Ron Paul?
I want old Ron Paul back. I don't like the new kind of older Ron Paul, who's kind of he's kind of Lulbert in some of his tendencies. I don't like that as much.
Yeah. He still makes some good. He always makes some good points. Pretty much everything. Like he's always gonna be that candidate that make the most sense. This is his common sense. So I still think he's that, but like he's always going to be consistent no matter what.
Mm.
He may fall into some Lulbert traps, whether it's bad or good. But hey, Ron Paul is his own person.
And I'm all right. Yeah, I mean you're right. He's still a worthwhile figure to listen to. I love his book and the Fed and things like that, and all that good stuff. But let's get into some of Esso's arguments. So do we want to start by addressing the whole wall cuck thing? Because I think that's the big divide, right?
Yeah.
You want to just give your thoughts on it first?
On the wall cut thing?
Well, like, do you think there's a justification for building a wall and restricted immigration? And if so, what would you say that justification is?
I believe the justification for that argument from a Austro-libertarian perspective is essentially forced integration, that these people are not adapting, and it's just the fact they're able to use essentially taxpayer money to get by government benefits, and they're most likely to vote in favor for more democratic policies than libertarian or even Republican policies. Yeah, and it's also sort of like an invasion Like, one of Shane Killian's argument is that, hey, this I can invite this Mexican to my property for his argument for open borders, but you can also make the same argument saying, hey, I don't want these people to come to my property. I should have free association.
Yeah, well, like his point in making that, I think, largely is him saying that, oh, well, if you don't want those people on your private property, then you don't have to have them on your private property. And it's this total lack of acknowledgement of the commons, which is the problem. Because, I mean, and I think this is some of the points you were making in the different types of property, because whether or not they're willing to admit it, you know, collectivized property is a thing, like the commons is a thing. And I mean, you can argue that's the result of government intervention, or you could say it even forms naturally. But either way, collectivized property is certainly certainly a thing. And the fact that you can't just, and you know, what Shane Killian refuses to acknowledge is that you can invite someone onto your personal property, but then at the same time, they're using roads that I paid for and a lot of other people paid for who might not necessarily want him to use it because they're technically our services because we're being forced to pay. At the same time, they're using, you know, regardless of welfare services, it's also just what the state provides, like in terms of basic things like plumbing and I said roads already, but like shit like this. It's the thing is, it might be paid for through stolen money, but if it's still your money being used, it might as well be used to get what you want, right?
Yeah, that's almost like a objectivist justification, but yes.
I don't want to invoke objectivism lest Dustbringer show up and shut us down with his big brainness.
No, I just want to just throw some shade at Ayn Rand. Just
well, I don't think Dusty is really even like I know he says he's an objectivist, and you know, far be it from me to tell him what his view is, but just from talking to him, it's always seemed like he's more of an Aristotelian who likes Ayn Rand than an objectivist necessarily, because the respect he pays to religion and religion's contribution to reason, I think, is largely greater than that the respect that any other objectivist would have for religion. And so, because I mean, you know, I've after having spoken to him about this, he has a great appreciation for Thomas Aquinas, who was another Aristotelian, and things like that. And I don't think Ayn Rand would have even given that much thought about other Catholic scholars and things like that, you know?
yeah.
I'm just scrolling through my likes and stuff because I went through Esso's feed and I tried to find his argument for why the wall isn't like legitimate or some shit. But is there anything else?
Wait.
Oh, you got it?
I think I can find it more quickly than you.
Okay, hold on. I got it. Yeah, here we go. All right, I got the thread.
Screen share for everybody.
Yeah, hold on. All right, so this is the thread. This is the initial thread that you started with him when he kind of quote mined the DM that he sent you about libertarianism lacking a sufficient theory of property, and it doesn't count for trust and cooperation. The last part I don't get, but I agree that, you know, it doesn't account fully for the way of what did I, oh yeah, no, I know why I like this. That's right. I was just documenting it. But what does it say? Okay, so here, yeah, you were saying a propertarian basically accepted that there are many different forms of property and different ways of acquiring property.
Yes.
Does Kurt Doolittle argue against Lockean property theory, or does he just have other theories? Well, I guess if you're going to consider culture property, you have to have a different theory about what acquiring property means, right?
Right. Let's see. He Harrian like tend to measure property, and I read somewhere in his articles that because of Hoppa, he's able to see property as a units. He starts. Can you also start screen sharing again? Just
Oh, am I not screen sharing?
no,
Wait, what? No?
no.
Oh, shit, I'm sorry. I thought I was. Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I must have hit stop sharing instead of hide. That was my bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he goes on to say, all AnCaps care about is all association is voluntary, not what someone does with their property. As long as all association is voluntary, AnCaps don't give a shit about what you do with your property. And that's another thing. Like, I'd have to honestly question if he would want to move in next to like a known crack house. Because if this is his position, he shouldn't care about it. But for some reason, I don't feel like he'd be so up for moving into next to a crack house, right?
Right.
And it's the same theory. Moving next to a crack house is, something that's going to devalue not only the property around you, but just like the standards of your neighborhood, and people are going to look down on it less. Business is going to be stifled because of it, and all these various other things. But no, just let people start an illegal underage brothel next to me. I don't care what you do on your property. It's your property.
Yeah, and he just realized that I was making.
Sorry, say that again.
He realized at that point I was making that argument.
Hmm.
Actually, just scroll up for more context. Actually,
well, he's been quote mining you a lot, but this is the part I want to get into with like the wall cuck stuff, because it's like, oh fuck this argument. Borders and shit can be justified because it's our stolen property, and it's like, nope, illegitimate property. The problem is that it was stolen to begin with, which I think is, it's kind of right and kind of wrong in that
I think it's right in the Lockean sense, because the government didn't really mix its labor into the property. I think from a libertarian perspective.
Yeah, no, that part's definitely right. But the fact is that we are no longer the de facto owners of that property, even though it's still our resources. So I kind of try to make a shitty analogy here that I clarify later on. And essentially what I'm talking about is, if someone stole your car and you knew you couldn't get it back, but the robber still let you use the car that he stole from you, would you burn your car down to spite the robber, or still protect it and care for your car even though it was stolen? Does that analogy make sense, or is it way too wordy?
It makes sense.
Because I simplify it here. He said, because he goes on to say, there's no scenario where this would be justified. Doesn't matter how you try to rationalize it after that. Your premise is based on an internal inconsistency that theft is justified to any extent, which I don't think I even touch on remotely. Because I'm not claiming that theft is justified. I'm just claiming that, realistically speaking, it is your property because you mixed your labor with it. But you no longer control it after that point. Someone else is controlling it. Someone else is using it. But it's still yours in that sense. So, do you still want to care for it, or are you just going to destroy it to spite the people who did take it from you? And so what I simplify the question is like, would you care for your rightful property even if someone else technically owned it? Or would you destroy your property despite the person who expropriated it?
And he didn't answer.
And No, I didn't get an answer to that. And I mean, I don't blame people for not always answering every tweet reply that they get, because I mean, I don't do that. At a certain point, I just stop. But I felt like this was a good question that ought to be answered, because it's, it's really the whole crux of this debate. Like, he's saying what he would do is, because it's his private property, he would just have the immigrants on there. But literally, the second he steps off of that property, everything else that immigrant is then using belongs to the taxpayers, technically, because it's their resources who have gone into building it. And you might argue that that's not a legitimate form of property, because property can't be collectively owned or anything like that. But practically speaking, that's the way it is. And so should we not pass, some sort of legislation based on the practical and the real, as opposed to just like the theoretically moral, right?
Right. Yeah. I just outright said that the government is collective property.
Yeah, I remember. And here he calls you fucking, I forgot this part. I don't know why he calls you hot from Voltaire Mutual Aid Bass J. As it turns out, the arguments for Hoppian proprietarianism perspective against anarcho-capitalism and the anarcho-communist arguments against it aren't too different, which is like fucking what? Do you know what he meant by that when he said that it was at all similar to?
See, I don't know why you liked it.
Oh, I had to keep track of it because I was making a tweet thread, and I was trying to keep track of all these tweets. So I just liked them so I could go to my liked bar and search them back up again.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it stopped letting me link tweets though, so I didn't end up making it. But that's where this strain comes in, because really, I'm just annoyed with this sort of. You remember this?
Yes.
Like, see, I know what you mean, but you understand why this might sound bad to someone who has no clue what you mean, right?
Right. Plus that's annoying. Nuclear takes is annoying.
Oh no. He's going to keep quote mining you, but at the same time, you do set yourself up for it just a little bit.
Nah.
You don't think so?
Nah.
I mean, saying you have fascist tendencies, but that you're not a quote-unquote statist is a little bit odd, no?
If you're around hard right circles, then you may understand where they're coming from that.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, but that's the problem with Esso. He has no intent on understanding anything outside of the basic Rothbardian or Lulbertarian kind of perspective. But, yeah. That's him. Hold on, I liked some other ones. Here, you actually make the same argument I brought up earlier. Do you really want to be associated with a crackhead devaluing your land? Let's see, making meth is a violation of the NAP because you could hurt someone. Well, I think that second part's a little bit weird, but I mean, the first part is completely correct. Are you going to voluntarily move next to a crackhead?
And I always thought that about the non-aggressive privilege. I just always thought that the non-aggressive actually would prevent meth cooking.
I mean, there are so many interpretations of the NAP too. Like, they act like, when they talk about human nature and when they talk about the non-aggression principle, like they act like there's only one take on these sort of things. Meanwhile, there's a huge amount of discussion going on, not only within libertarian circles, but within other circles about this kind of stuff. And to see them just kind of say, well, we have this one universal understanding is annoying. And then fucking this kind of, fucking This bothered me. This meme. Did you see this?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fucking Lysander Spooner. It's
Ooh,
not even fun.
oh, the abolitionist versus the virgin hopping. When the shit, let's see, read but longer than 100 pages yet expire modern anarchist philosophers. Only libertarian representatives German politics. That's absolute false. Okay. Let's see. Taxation and spending borders are fine. That argument is ultimately fallacious. Post-social contracts, but forcing the sign fiscal contract based on same principles. That doesn't make any sense. Advocates, I don't know.
Advocacy doesn't move past theory.
I don't know. Sympathetic to monarchy due to the hatred of democracy.
Against his it's see, it's like this shit. Like this is so many straw men all tied into one, and it's also basically
show for conservative politicians. I remember a while back where he basically called Western leaders all mass murderers and didn't really like Pat Buchanan. Does anyone remember that? I know I remember that.
I don't know what he said about Pat Buchanan, but
he didn't like him at all.
I mean, that's funny because Rothbard actually endorsed Pat Buchanan for a little while.
And he later regretted that.
Well, I think it's because Buchanan kind of cut to the neocons in his later days.
Although, I just always thought that Hoppe didn't like him because of his protectionism.
Yeah, I can see that. Although, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I think in specific cases you can make the case for protectionism, but that's another discussion. But then, this fucking never written a book longer than 100 pages yet inspired most modern anarchist philosophers. That's so wrong. Like, most modern anarchist philosophers are left of some kind. And so most have been inspired by like the Proudhons and the Bakunins and the Kropotkins. And I'd really only take lightly from Spooner because he wrote, again, he's a left anarchist who wrote on the wrote about the abolition of wages, but so they take from him lightly, but he certainly didn't inspire most modern anarchist philosophers.
Yeah.
Explained why democracy is forced, never voted. Didn't live long enough to know what fascism is. They don't know what fascism is, but whatever.
No one knows what fascism is except actual fascists.
Yeah, like fucking, I trust people in Braving Ruin Circle know what fascism is and shit like that because they've clearly read it. I mean, I haven't read too much. I've listened to a couple of speeches by Oswald Mosley, and I've read a little bit of his, but it's not like I'm incredibly well versed. But fucking...
if you want to learn more about fascism, I recommend go check out Mauritian Struggles stream about where he talk about the doctrines of fascism by Gile Gentili and Benito Mussolini.
Oh, he did a stream on it. Okay, yeah, I like Mauritian. Writes a book explaining why his ethics are scientifically provable and why you can't disagree with him without being inconsistent.
Why does that sound familiar?
Yeah, right. Fucking. Hold on. There's got to be an image somewhere in here. He did it recently to me. He keeps saying scientifically provable when he means logically consistent or logically provable. But fucking, you can't scientifically prove ethics. Ethics is a meta concept. It's not something that you can find proof of in the physical world. So fucking. Excuse the cancer memes. Hold on. Oh, fuck.
You
background, folks.
You like cats. That's cute.
No, my mom changed my background for Christmas, and I've just been too lazy to fucking change it back. But, no, I posted something about. Hold on. I posted something about Mouthy Buddha and Jean-Francois Garipi are doing something on the non-aggression principle soon.
Wait. Go up. Wait, guys, this. Let's see. I think you went past it.
What?
Let's see.
Oh yeah. Oh, here it is. I think. Yeah. See, he posts. This is what he posts. And I question him. The NAF can be scientifically proven. Do you mean logically proven? And he posts this as if it's proving his point. And I don't know what he's talking about. So I've gone through this a couple times, but so the relation in, I don't know that Greek letter, so I'm just going to call it, it looks like a Y, so I'm just going to call it Y. So the relation of an infinite series is equivalent to each of the following. The formula, the infinite series is a subset of itself is tautology, and the formula, I don't know all of these symbols, so I can't actually say what this is, and I guarantee he doesn't know what these symbols mean.
It seemed gibberish to me.
Well, this seems like I have some friends who are in some upper level math classes, doing stuff like topology and shit, and this seems like the stuff they would be doing. This seems like, and I can't say if it is, but I can only say it seems like analytical type logic, but I really don't know much about it, so I can't say that with any degree of accuracy. So I would have to look up all the terms. Should I tweet at him asking him to explain this?
No.
I won't do it now. Here, I'm just going to stop sharing now because really that's everything I wanted to talk about with him.
I thought there was going to be more. Okay.
I mean, there is more we can go over, but at this point, I don't feel like, you can go on to his, you can go on to his stream or his stream and find his tweets and spurg out on him because one of the things that annoys me the most about him, besides the straw manning, besides the fact that he's not willing to give other people their due or their platform when they try to defend their arguments from his straw man, is that he
argues in bad faith.
He does. He argues in bad faith, and he argues so self-assuredly that he is right. And, of course, it plays into the fact that they actually believe that everything they believe is perfectly logically consistent or provable, and it can be scientifically proven and shit like that. They've bought into the idea that their ideology is flawless, and so it is like insulting their religion, essentially. They're no different than fundamentalists in that mindset, kind of.
Well, they're no different than Marxists, but hey.
I don't know. I think calling them Marxist in their talking point is because, Marxists aren't the first people to use that kind of talking strategy. It's a rhetorical strategy. And it's used by everybody who thinks that they're right without exception, and so I don't think it's right to just smear people as they're the political ideology you happen to find distasteful.
No, that's not being really genuine in that giving their arguments when it comes to the non-aggression axiom. It really does sound like a Marxist argument, so to speak. It implies a aggressor, a victim, point A to point B, and explain. And this is a solo ad hominem that you're the aggressor or you want to commit aggression, so therefore you're bad. Walter Block did this, and Stephen Costello. It's
you're saying it kind of sounds like. Are you saying it kind of sounds like dialectics?
No, not that. The way it's argued. It has nothing to do with Marxian dialectics, which is another form of complicated philosophy that we're not going to go into in the stream. But it's the way it's argued, and it implies like it actually has no rebuttal or weight to it. The way internet AnCaps or even legitimate libertarians theorists argues for it.
I guess, but at the same time, I feel I know what you're saying. It's it's a simplistic dichotomy that they set up that aggression or perceived acts of aggression can only be a one-way street. That it's kind of selling the whole philosophy short a little bit. That's kind of what you're saying, right? I don't want to miss.
It's like that. You remember that Stefan Molyneux argument?
Which one?
Okay, let's see. That means you support me of getting shot, basically. If you advocate for this government policy, such as on like the prohibition of drugs, you advocate of me basically getting shot, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like the type of deal, like because you want this, you want that. Yeah. No, okay, I get what you're saying better now. Yeah, and it's like the same thing with borders. It's like, oh, if you want borders and you want limited immigration, you also think that taxation is right. And it's like the two they try to make this disjointed connection between the two, and it's kind of like what we talked about on the Moreover Philosophy cast we did a while ago, or I did a while ago with Tom. He kind of it's kind of like the same thing with praxeology. A lot of Austrians get caught in this trap where they'll use praxeology to try to parse out things like explaining business cycles or why certain businesses fail or why this and why that. And it's so far beyond the stretch of praxeology as a philosophy, which makes it absurd to try to use it to explain complex economic phenomena when statistical data is far more relevant. And I guess the same thing applies with AnCaps here, where they imbue motive on people's, or they imbue their own idea of what their opponent's ethics will be. It's it is kind of why it is sort of a straw man, although I keep saying that, and not to say that I'm not using it correctly, but I think the more we use it, the less effect it has on people, because they're just going to start to say, well, oh, everything's a straw man. And I want to prevent that,
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think we're done shitting on SO. I meant to at some point fucking kind of join. Oh, well, I meant to tell them. I don't know if they're fucking listening. I guess at this point, I'm certain they're not. Although I do have we do have. Hold on, I'm looking at chat. We have Thought Criminal in chat who says Molyneux isn't wrong with his against me argument, but it doesn't prove the nap. It just points out that they're advocating for force.
But it's a bad argument. It's like saying. It's basically a equivalent of a liberal saying you support a mass murderer. You support mass murder because you don't believe in gun control. That's how absurd that argument is. It was designed to fail, and it was designed to make you look stupid and make you look and basically make libertarianism or libertarians idiots, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, what Molyneux tries to argue when he says, if you advocate for, the legalization of some kind of, if you advocate for the prohibition of some kind of drug, then you're advocating for me to get shot. Well, no, we don't want you to get shot. We want you to just stop smoking the drug. And it's like, if you happen to get shot, then, we didn't want that, but we still believe that the other cause is worth fighting for. And so it's it's this disconnect where they imbue motive again, because it's like, oh, you support this state, well, you vote, you must support what the state's doing. Then it's giving. I got into this argument with Hoodie Demon, and that really disappointed me because I like Hoodie, and I didn't think he was this much of a basic bitch AnCap until I actually got into it with him on Twitter, and I told him, well, no, it's like what it's not that. First off, you can't prove that voting is support of the system, and I find it funny that he says it is, because Lysander Spooner actually went into great detail to show that voting is not the same as support of the state, and Lysander Spooner actually favored voting as a measure of self-defense from further state aggression. Because Lysander Spooner, oddly enough, knew that when you have a state that exists, whether or not you vote, the aggression doesn't magically disappear, and the consent of the rest of the people magically doesn't disappear when, you stop voting. And I did a video on this a while back talking about voting as a form of self-defense. And these guys they're just, I'm getting flustered now, but they keep imbuing bad intentions on people who want certain policies. Like, first off, they think that we don't know the negative consequences, and then they think that we support the negative consequences. And the reality is, we know both. We're just doing a cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah. Although it's kind of nice to just end all the war on drugs. Like, just there's nothing wrong just ending it.
No, I mean, I think, I don't necessarily disagree with Molyneux in that, whatchamacallit, I don't think the war on drugs is something that should be sustained.
I
might not want people smoking meth, but I don't want people, being shot for possessing like a gram of weed in the back of their Jeep. That's retarded.
Yeah, and that actually has happened before, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, of course. I don't doubt it has at all. I can.
The against me argument by Stefan Molyneux is it's just rhetoric. It has no real substance. It's not really like a great argument. Like if you're just a Steph bot and you be like Stefan Molyneux as your guy, yeah, this is a great argument. But when you're just like some normal person who's not really political, but rather disdain, the rhetoric of both politics. This is no different from what the Republicans say about atheists about eating babies or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, who's it? Austro-libertarian reactionary noted in chat that, and the drug war, but also kill your local drug dealer. Like, that's the thing. Drug dealers are, violent, malicious sons of bitches. They're not just businessmen that went underground because the evil government is like preventing them from running a legitimate business. These are people who kill children and hollow out their corpse so that they can smuggle drugs across the border. And like, no shit, that's stuff like the Zetas have done in the southern states, like bordering Mexico. It's fucking insane. And there's all these naive notions that going into advocating for certain policies. And I think libertarians just want to ignore, the negative consequences of their fucking policies as much. Meanwhile, we want to say, well, here are some policies. Let's do the cost benefit analysis on what they all are and see what happens.
Well,
But if you do the cost benefit analysis and it ends up supporting the state, well, you're a filthy statist and you can't, your opinion is invalid.
yeah, essentially. Also with like to be honest, most of anarcho-capitalist arguments against the states are pretty good. Like if you actually know what you're talking about, like they can be really good. And the offense of the free market, they can also do that pretty well as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not someone who advocates for anarcho-capitalism by any more, really. Like, I'm not advocating for that as a solution to our political woes. But at the same time, I'm still going to defend it in theory because I believe it's consistent. Like, the state in general, and I think even people like, even like reactionaries, neo-reactionaries, and out fascists have come out and said that the state is an inefficient monster that needs to be carefully watched, but at the same time they run their cost benefit analysis and decide, well, the state is worth having. I would say we need it at this point in time, but we can get rid of it down the line, hopefully, if we implement certain strategies now. You know what I mean?
Yeah man.
But we're never going to be able to get the chance to make this case to fucking ESO or Hoodie Demon or Anarchy Ball because they're not even willing to hear us out on this.
Well, Anarchy Ball is a pure ideologue and cancerous, but maybe Hoodie Demon is willing to listen. Maybe.
I mean, I hope so. I've been trying to DM him too, and he hasn't responded. I don't know if ESO has kind of turned him off from the idea of bait entirely, or if they're just purposefully kind of trying to not give us a platform to defend ourselves because they want to just keep bagging on us. I don't know what it is. But I want it to stop, because if they're going to continue to misrepresent our ideas and not give us a platform, then they lose all claims to being the intellectually honest and morally upstanding people.
Like the reason why I've been so hard on esoteric so lately, like if you actually understand Hoppa's actual position on this, then your own horribly misinterpretation of Hoppa, and actually have come with a legit criticism of him, I'll probably back off of you. But if you just come with rather lazy strongman and you just spreading out misinformation, I will come after you like with all like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I'm gonna try to, I don't know, I might parse clips from this stream and send it to those guys so they can see what we're talking about. Maybe I saw Yax in the chat before. Yax said that he got back into the new chat, so maybe he can send this video to them. I don't know, but fucking, I want that debate, and I mean, I think Tom wants it too. I can't speak for Dylan. I don't know if Dylan wants this debate, but I think he's just tired of being strawman like we are, and so I hope eventually they actually come out and start talking to us again instead of just strawmanning us and quote mining us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think this stream went well. I think it was rather productive.
Yeah, this was therapeutic. This was therapeutic and necessary. Yeah, so I will shut it down, but I think people are talking about the link to I will post the link to my Discord. Hello from Argentina. Hello from an actually white nation, Seba77. But I'll post the link to my Discord in the description below after the stream. And if people want invites to Tom's Discord, you can DM me and I'll talk to him, because I don't think he's just into, I don't know, but I don't think he's into just handing out invites to his Discord anymore. But yeah, come join my Discord and I'll talk to him about having you hop in his Discord. So yeah. Peace, everybody.
Bye.